Welcome, dear listener, to a journey through time and imagination where the whisper of ancient tales lulls you into a peaceful slumber. Tonight, we travel to a land of rolling meadows, towering castles, and a kingdom filled with secrets and wonders. Here, amidst the golden glow of lantern-lit streets, there lives a tailor. No ordinary man, but one of quick wit and boundless charm. Close your eyes and imagine the evening air is cool and sweet, carrying the scent of fresh bread from the village bakery, mingling with the distant murmur of a flowing river. The streets of the little town glow softly beneath the flickering lanterns, casting long, dancing shadows against the cobbled stone. The people move about in gentle harmony, merchants closing their stalls, children laughing in hushed whispers, and weary travelers finding solace in the inviting glow of the inn. In the heart of this village, tucked between a bustling market square and a winding path toward the hills, there is a tailor's shop. Inside, golden candlelight flickers over walls lined with vibrant fabrics, spools of silk and thread stacked high in careful disarray. The air is filled with the faint scent of lavender and beeswax, the gentle hum of a spinning wheel, and the rhythmic snip of shears gliding through cloth. At a sturdy wooden table, bent over his work, sits Felix, the tailor. His fingers dance with deft precision, threading fine stitches into a deep blue fabric, his mind wandering far beyond the walls of his shop. He dreams not of needle and thread, but of adventure, of grand halls and whispered legends. And so, on this night, fate will weave a tale unlike any other, a story of cunning and courage, where wit shall outmatch might, and the smallest of men will change the course of a kingdom. The story begins here, in the quiet hum of the village night, where a single clever thought will set everything into motion. Chapter 1. In a quaint little village nestled between rolling green meadows and shaded by towering oak trees, there lived a tailor named Felix. He was a small man with nimble fingers and an even sharper mind, known for stitching the finest garments that nobles and merchants alike sought for their delicate craftsmanship. His shop, though modest, bustled with customers who admired his intricate embroidery, his flawless stitches, and the colours that seemed to dance on fabric as though kissed by sunlight. But for all his skill, Felix was not content to simply sew and mend. He longed for adventure, for grander things beyond the confines of his workshop. One drowsy afternoon, as golden light streamed through his shop window, Felix sat on a wooden stool, nibbling at a piece of honeyed bread, his mind wandering to fanciful daydreams. A swarm of flies had gathered, drawn to the sweet scent of his meal. With a quick, almost lazy motion, Felix swatted at them with a rolled-up cloth. When he lifted it, to his amusement, 7 lifeless flies lay on the table. 7 in one blow, he murmured, leaning back with a grin. Now that's a feat worth boasting about. A mischievous idea took root in his mind, growing like ivy winding up a castle wall. He retrieved a fine strip of deep blue satin, and with delicate golden thread embroidered the words, 7 in one blow. He draped it across his chest, letting it shine in the daylight. That evening he took a stroll through the village market, humming a carefree tune. The bold letters of his sash gleamed, catching the attention of shopkeepers and travellers alike. Whispers spread like ripples in a pond. 7 in one blow, they murmured. Surely not 7 mere flies. Could it be 7 bandits, 7 mighty warriors? By the time the sun had set, the entire village buzzed with speculation, but words do not stop at village borders. By week's end, travellers had carried the tale to distant lands, and as stories often do, it grew in grandeur with every telling. It was only a matter of time before word of this mighty feat reached the ears of the king himself. The king, a man both proud and wary, stroked his silver beard as he listened to the tale. "A man who has slain 7 in one blow," he mused. "Such strength could be of great use or a great danger." And so a royal summons was sent, commanding the tailor Felix to present himself before the king. Chapter 2. The King's Impossible Trials. Felix had never seen a castle up close before, and as he stood before its towering gates, he took a slow, deep breath. The grand stone walls stretched skyward, their surfaces covered in creeping ivy, and banners bearing the royal crest fluttered in the wind. The guards, clad in polished armor, led him inside, their boots clanking against the marble floors. Chandeliers hung from the ceilings, their crystals glimmering like captured stars. Felix took it all in, careful to mask his awe behind a confident smile. The grand throne room was vast, with walls lined in deep crimson drapes and gold embellishments. The king sat atop an elaborate gilded throne, his crown heavy with jewels that sparkled in the candlelight. Court nobles stood along the sides of the room, murmuring amongst themselves as Felix approached. "So," the king said, his deep voice carrying through the hall, "you are the man who has slain 7 in one blow." Felix bowed. "Indeed, your majesty." The king studied him for a long moment, eyes sharp as a hawk's. A warrior of such skill must be tested. He steepled his fingers. "A giant plagues my kingdom, terrorizing villages and trampling my finest fields. Defeat him, and you shall have riches beyond measure." Felix barely concealed his surprise. A giant? He had bested 7 flies, not a creature from children's bedtime stories. But he had come too far to falter now. He straightened his shoulders, adjusting the sash across his chest. "Very well, your majesty," he said with a confident smile. "I shall rid you of this menace." He turned on his heel and strode from the room, his mind already working furiously. He had no sword, no armor, only his wits. But if wits could defeat 7 flies, surely they could defeat a giant. The journey to the outskirts of the kingdom was long, the dense forests stretching like endless green waves. Felix walked for days, his boots kicking up dust, as he followed the worn paths leading toward the mountains, where the villagers claimed the giant dwelled. The deeper he went, the thicker the air grew, rich with the scent of damp earth and pine. On the 3rd day, he came upon a clearing where a monstrous figure lay sleeping beneath a great oak. The giant was as fearsome as the tales had said. His arms were thick as tree trunks, his beard tangled with leaves and dirt, his chest rising and falling with deep, rumbling breaths. The ground trembled with each exhale. Felix hesitated only a moment before stepping forward. "Good evening, mighty giant," he called, his voice steady. The giant stirred, cracking open one great eye. "Who dares wake me?" he rumbled. Felix stood tall, hands on his hips. "I am Felix, the warrior who slays 7 in one blow. I challenge you to a test of strength." The giant let out a low chuckle. "You? Challenge me?" Felix nodded. "If you are as strong as they say, prove it. Squeeze this stone until water flows from it." He handed the giant a round rock. With a snort, the giant clenched his massive fingers around it, but no water came forth. Felix held up a piece of soft cheese, pretending it was a stone. With an effortless squeeze, liquid dripped between his fingers. The giant's brows knitted in confusion. "You are strong, little man." Felix grinned. "Perhaps you'd like to throw a stone farther than I?" The giant picked up a boulder and hurled it high. It crashed down with a mighty boom. Felix, quick as a whisper, reached into his pocket and released a small bird into the sky. It soared upward, never to return to the ground. "Yours may have landed, but mine still flies," Felix said slyly. The giant scratched his head. "You are tricky, little man." Felix nodded. "One more test. Carry me on your shoulders and prove your strength." The giant hoisted Felix up, but as he did, Felix slipped a rope around the giant's waist and tied it to a tree. The moment the giant tried to take a step, he found himself trapped. Felix leapt down, brushed off his sleeves and grinned. "Seems I have bested you," he declared. The giant, realizing he had been tricked, let out a bellow and fled, disappearing into the mountains, never to be seen again. Felix dusted his hands. One trial down. Chapter 3. Felix returned to the castle, his stride confident, his mind still brimming with satisfaction from besting the giant. As he entered the throne room, the king's advisers murmured in disbelief. The king himself watched Felix carefully, fingers steepled, eyes narrowed. "You have done well," the king admitted, "but strength alone is not enough. Intelligence and strategy must also be tested." Felix resisted the urge to smirk. "If only you knew," he thought. "A wild boar has been ravaging my lands," the king continued. "It is cunning, swift, and has eluded my best hunters. Capture it, alive, and you shall prove your worth." Felix inclined his head. "A boar? I shall bring it to you before the next sunrise." The courtiers gasped, but Felix paid them no mind. He set off at once, knowing full well that the task was not as simple as it seemed. The forest stretched dark and thick before him, the moonlight barely reaching through the dense canopy. Felix moved silently, his ears attuned to every rustle of the undergrowth, every distant hoot of an owl. He knew that brute force would not subdue the creature, so he devised a plan. He gathered ripe apples, their scent rich and sweet, and laid them in a winding trail leading to a clearing. Then he climbed a sturdy oak tree, his rope and net at the ready. Hours passed, and then a rustle, a deep, guttural snort. The boar emerged, its coarse fur bristling, its tusks gleaming under the sliver of moonlight. It followed the apples, sniffing each one suspiciously before devouring it. Step by step, it wandered into the clearing. Felix gripped the net in his hands, his muscles tensed. As the boar reached the final apple, Felix leapt from the tree, the net cascading over the beast. The boar thrashed, letting out a furious squeal, its hooves kicking up dirt. Felix held on tight, guiding the net as he tied the rope to a low-hanging branch, securing the beast. By morning, Felix marched triumphantly back to the castle, the wild boar trailing behind him, subdued but unharmed. The king, who had expected failure, leaned forward in astonishment. "You truly are full of surprises," the king said, his voice laced with intrigue. "One final test remains." Chapter 4. The king, still skeptical, turned to his daughter. The kingdom's ruler must be more than strong and clever, they must be wise. He gestured to the princess, a woman with keen eyes and a mind as sharp as any blade. "If you wish to prove yourself, you must outwit my daughter." Felix bowed. "A challenge I gladly accept." The princess regarded him for a long moment before speaking. "I shall give you 3 riddles. Answer them correctly, and you shall win my favor." Felix smiled. Riddles were a game he played often in the village tavern. He nodded for her to proceed. The princess took a breath. First riddle. I have rivers, but no water. I have roads, but no travelers. I have cities, but no buildings. What am I?
Felix thought for only a moment before answering. A map.
The princess arched an eyebrow, impressed. Very well. Second riddle. The more you take, the more you leave behind. What am I? Felix chuckled. Footsteps. The courtiers exchanged glances. The princess gave a small smile. Final riddle. The poor have it, the rich need it, and if you eat it, you die. What is it?
Felix hesitated for only a moment before answering. Nothing.
The room fell silent. Then the princess laughed, the sound clear and melodious. You are indeed clever. The king sighed, leaning back on his throne. It seems you have bested every challenge. The wedding was grand, the kingdom celebrating the unexpected match of the clever tailor and the sharp-witted princess. Felix, once a humble craftsman, found himself ruling beside his bride, using wit and cunning rather than might to guide the kingdom. He outmaneuvered schemers, resolved disputes with clever solutions, and ensured that the people prospered under his rule. Though he had once longed for adventure, he found that leading a kingdom brought new challenges every day. Challenges he met with the same mischievous smile and twinkling eyes that had won him his crown. And as he sat upon the throne, his mind forever sharp, he knew there would always be another clever game to play, another riddle to solve, and another adventure waiting just beyond the horizon. The end, for now.